After the release of Black Panther, Kevin Feige said that there were many stories to tell about the character. Marvel Studios wanted to keep the creative team as intact as possible, while Disney chairman Alan Horn, despite feeling it was too early to discuss a sequel, was also positive about the desire to have Ryan Coogler return as director. Coogler wanted to see how T'Challa would grow as a king in future films, since his reign had only recently begun in the MCU, in contrast to the comics where he was king since childhood. By October, Coogler had closed a deal to write and direct at least 2 sequels to Black Panther. He was expected to begin writing the first one in 2019, ahead of a planned filming start date later that year, or early 2020, with the majority of the cast reprising their roles. At first, the only exception to this was Daniel Kaluuya, who was forced to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. However, on August 28, 2020, tragedy struck the production when Chadwick Boseman sadly died from colon cancer at the age of just 43. It turned out he had been suffering from the disease even before his first appearance in Civil War, but he hadn't told anyone about his illness and had continued to work without complaint, even performing all of his own stunts. This left Marvel with a big and unwieldy question to answer. Should they recast the role of T'Challa, write his death into the screenplay, or just scrap the movie altogether? In the end, it was decided that production would still go ahead, but the role of T'Challa would not be recast out of respect for Boseman and his legacy, and that the Black Panther title would be reassigned to another character. However, Chadwick's brother Derek actually spoke out against this plan, saying that his late brother wouldn't have been so arrogant to want T'Challa to die with him, and that he would have wanted the character's journey to continue. The thing is, I can see his point, and I think from a story perspective, it is a bit weak to kill off such an iconic character in the first 3 minutes of the movie, but honestly, I feel like they were doomed no matter what they did. If they recast him, people would be outraged, and people were outraged when they decided to kill him off. They couldn't win.
Let's try another way.
Boseman's death affected Ryan Coogler so much that he not only almost walked away from the project completely, but he considered stepping away from the movie industry altogether. However, after taking his final conversations with Boseman into consideration, Coogler decided that it was best to keep moving forward with the project to honour his friend's memory.
That's awesome.
His first draft of the script was about halfway done when Boseman died, and would have explored T'Challa dealing with resuming life after the events of Endgame, and would have also explored his relationship with his young son who he never met because of Thanos' snap. He ended up having to rewrite much of it to work T'Challa's death into the story, though he was able to retain certain aspects such as the introduction of Namor and Shuri taking on the title of Black Panther. The script was rewritten 6 times before filming finally began in June 2021. For the role of Namor, a long list of actors were considered, including Daniel Day Kim, Brian T, The Rock, Henry Golding, David Boreanaz, Will Yun Lee, Hiroyuki Sanada, and Michael Phelps, until Tenoch Huerta was cast. Amusingly, despite playing the king of an underwater kingdom, Huerta didn't know how to swim, and when asked by the director, he responded, "I mean, I've never drowned before." He then promptly took swimming lessons to prepare for the part.
That sounds very painful.
Namor had originally been planned to appear in Doctor Strange 2 as a member of the Illuminati, given that he was one of its founding members in the comics, but this was dropped, thereby allowing him to be included in this film.
Just like that.
Filming went on until March 2022, and the cast and crew would often bond over the grief for Boseman's passing, and said that making the movie greatly helped them to deal with their loss. However, Boseman's death and the COVID-19 pandemic caused the film's release date of July 2022 to be delayed until November that same year. Black Panther Wakanda Forever was released on November the 11th, 2022 and was a huge hit, grossing $858 million worldwide and was generally well received, garnering praise for the performances, action, visuals and tribute to Boseman, though many deemed it inferior to the first. Like its predecessor, it was also a hit at the awards, winning an Oscar for Best Costume Design and being nominated for 4 others, including Best Supporting Actress for Angela Bassett as T'Challa's mum, making her the first actor to be nominated for an Oscar for a Marvel film. The movie is extra heartbreaking and has that much more emotion behind it due to the real life circumstances. And to their credit, Marvel do treat it incredibly respectfully, and it is a moving opening.
You're off the edge.
Oh great, it's an Avatar crossover. I think the story is the best that they could have really come up with considering the circumstances. And it's not really a bad one. With T'Challa now dead, Wakanda is left unprotected and they have to look after their own kingdom whilst mourning their loss.
T'Challa is dead, but that doesn't mean he's gone.
Shuri also cuts her hair short after T'Challa's death, which is an actual African mourning tradition. Shaving your head is part of the grieving process. It's all very well done, and the license plate of the prisoner transport actually has Chadwick Boseman's initials and date of birth on it, which is nice. Oh, and Bilbo is back! Remember him? He was a thing. To me, the film is just kind of there. There's nothing really special about it. We get another Iron Man suit.
What is it you're building here? Is it static?
Apparently any kind of technology in this universe was invented by Howard or Tony Stark. They invented life. but it's just nothing new. She flies the suit too high and runs out of oxygen. Seen it. Wakanda is being targeted. Seen it. Big battle scene in Wakanda. Seen it. Hero gets fake out deathed. Seen it. Flashback to a dead relative for motivation. Seen it. The action. Seen it. It's a pretty generic film that just retreads all of the shit we've already seen over and over again.
I recognize some of the concepts here.
That's in every movie.
The choreography is fine, but it's nothing new. After 30 films, it's getting a bit tedious. Although this improvised line was pretty cool.
You bald-headed demon.
And apparently the teeth in the throne room are supposedly from a megalodon, which is kind of cool.
Hey, she blue?
Is that supposed to be a joke? I mean, she is blue. What's the joke? Although the acting is incredible.
Who on earth would risk war with Wakanda?
Any of the people who risked war with Wakanda in the last few films? I'm honestly not that invested in the sea people's backstory, but admittedly the underwater sequences do have a magical feel to them with some really nice music. The issue I have is that almost every character is just so forgettable. The only ones I'm really interested in are Shuri and Okoye. Everyone else is just kind of background noise. Although Killmonger comes back and he's always fun to see, even if he is so evil.
You let the man who murdered your father live, and here you stand.
But you know what Marvel's been missing? More death! Phase 4 is fucking miserable. I mean, Jesus Christ, do Marvel just get off on killing main characters? There is a really sweet moment as they're all working together and fondly remember T'Challa. And there's a throwback to his death earlier in the film. It does have emotion there, I'm just not that into the overall story. But why is she looking like a damn Power Ranger? Shuri ends up taking on the Black Panther name, but she looks about 12. I know they couldn't really do much else given the circumstances, but it's just not the same. And the Panther doesn't have that impact anymore that Boseman brought to the table. The film is just kind of boring and really doesn't need to be nearly 3 hours long. Everything gets resolved and it just keeps on going. But we do get a nice little fantasy of Chadwick Boseman, so I can't be too mad. Before we see this kid nobody knew about after the credits. The film isn't terrible and I think they did what they could with what they had, but it just fell flat for me. It's boring, overly long, it recycles everything that we've already seen in the previous 30 or so movies. The characters aren't nearly as engaging without Boseman to play off of, and it never really grabbed my attention the way that the first one did. It's a shame, and I'm glad other people enjoyed it, but I found myself looking at my watch for most of the runtime. Phase 4 has been a pretty mixed bag, and this one just joins it with a resounding eh. One more, guys! One more to go!